Hey Jeff, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, we're doing all right.
Excellent.
So Chad, hey,
Join the meeting.
Chad, one thing we'll want to do is mute everybody during
Oh,
the
yeah, I
meeting.
think he's recording.
It's
It's
already,
somebody Alden.
yeah.
Jim
Jim
Alden.
Alden.
Okay. All right, we open the meeting at 5 p.m. and if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Meeting's getting started. We'll do this one here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just ask all callers to mute their microphone until they have a question.
Until they're recognized, actually.
Until they're recognized by the board.
Okay, so this being the first board meeting after the election, this is considered the board
Have all-
organization meeting.
Participants
So
mute their
following
microphone
the annual election, the
until they're
select board
recognized by the board.
holds this meeting. During this portion of the meeting, the board, by separate motion, nominates chairman. After a chairman has been voted on and accepted, then I'll pass over the meeting to that person. So at this time, open up nominations from the board for chairperson.
I'll make a motion to nominate Carrie Gendro as board chair.
Are the, okay, motion's been made and seconded. And are there any other nominations? All right, seeing none, we'll close the nominations and take a vote. All in favor of Carrie Gendro as chairperson of the Board of Selectmen, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Congratulations, Carrie.
Thank you,
And I'll hand it over to you.
thank you. I think before we get started too, I just wanted to shout out to those that helped at the polls and all the hard work that went into the budget and organizing that. That's no easy feat, so a shout out to that. And also to Franco, who served on the board for 3 years. I want to thank him for his service as well. And a big welcome to Roger. Welcome, Roger.
Welcome, Ron.
Yeah. So our first matter of business then would be Corinne Cascadden. Is she?
Is she on the line?
Is Corinne Cascadden on the line? Not seeing her by name.
No.
Planning board and vice chair.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yes,
right. We still have to
that's-
take nominations.
Okay. So I nominate Chad Stearns as vice chair.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, Chad. And then we also will have to accept nominations for the ex officio to the planning board. Historically, it is the new select person that comes in kind of gets their feet wet and adjust, and then it's the one that second. Congratulations. So I nominate Chad Stearns as the ex officio to the planning board. Do I have a second?
Second, yeah.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Chad. Okay, so now, Andrew, I guess it would be the town and SAU safety collaboration.
That's right. Corinne Cascadden from the interim superintendent from SAU 84 had planned on presenting. I'm not sure if she's on the line remotely.
She wasn't as of a minute ago. She did get the invitation and responded to it though. So
Okay.
she must just be held up somewhere.
Okay. Madam Chairman, would you mind skipping that topic and coming back if she becomes available?
Sure. Let's go on to the next one. I guess according to the agenda, it'd be Doug Damko, Public Works Director, and Andrea Day, Dufresne's Group. And do you want to?
Yeah. So I'll just go over, I guess, briefly about this. So there's multiple items that they're going to be addressing that's having to do with the wastewater collection system, asset management plan, the wastewater treatment plant, and preliminary engineering.
Damko has joined the meeting.
Okay, and he's here. So, and then septage receiving station improvements, and then also towards the end of that, there's a Mill Street discussion about looking for direction for which way we want to go. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andrea Day and Doug Damko. Andrea, are you on the line? See. Yeah.
I am, but
I guess it's almost impossible to hear, and the Zoom media isn't working.
Uh-huh.
yeah, I only heard a very little bit of what Amber said.
The Bloom seems like it's up.
It's up.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
may have to refresh that page.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of hard. We're supposed to be keeping so many feet apart, and we're speaking through a laptop for the WebEx portal. Yeah, right now we're doing and also Chad just said that perhaps you should try to refresh your page if the Flume stream isn't working. All right, and next up is the wastewater collection system and treatment plant discussion. And I mean, I could read this real quick too. The goal of the asset management program is to manage systems assets to meet designated level of service in the most cost-effective manner. There are several key benefits of the asset management plan, including enumerate the state of existing infrastructure, assist with rate setting based on sound information, ensure transparency with the customers, and provide an organized approach to the system operation asset management. Littleton's wastewater collection system includes 181,600 linear feet of gravity mains, 13,700 linear feet of pressure mains, and 819 manholes. Total replacement value of the entire system is approximately $28,400,000. And a presentation is going to be made on the progress of the wastewater collection system asset management plan. And Doug Danko and Andrea Day, if you want to go ahead and start your presentation.
Andrew, do you have the
I have the slides.
PowerPoint called up?
No, she's breaking up.
Sorry, this is really awkward.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't, can you possibly Chad move it so I can see what slide he's on?
I don't see slides up somewhere.
Here,
right now.
I'll put 'em
They're,
up.
they're coming up.
Yep.
I'll probably have to walk you on over because I think it's going to be too far away from the TV to see.
And, would it be possible to turn a camera to face the screen?
I'll play Vanna here and try to just. I apologize for blocking them a bit.
Okay. All right, you can go to the next slide, Andrew. So Andrew already covered kind of the first few slides. Basically, the goal of an asset management plan is to help community identify their existing infrastructure, the condition of that infrastructure, and how they're going to meet a level of service in the most cost-effective manner. It also assists with setting rates and communicating to the system users why their rates are, what they are, and what they're getting for that service. Next slide.
It's up.
So Andrew mentioned already the collection and transmission mains, 181,600 linear feet of gravity, 13,700 pressure, and 819 manholes. This program was developed with assistance from the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund. They have an asset management program that provides $30,000 of loan forgiveness to help communities develop these plans. Next slide. So I'll note that this plan is for the collection system only, which includes the collection sewer mains and manholes. You can see the extent of the system on this map. There are pump stations in the system, but that is covered that's called a vertical asset, and that is covered under phase 2 of asset management. But this kind of gives you an idea of the extent of the wastewater collection system. Next slide. So as Andrew mentioned earlier, the value of the mains, replacement cost, of the mains is approximately 25 million, and manholes approximately 3 million, which results in $28.4 million of replacement cost for the collection system. Slide. So we started this process doing data collection, which included existing, and we gathered what information the town had, took their existing mapping, made a bunch of field inspections, worked with the Public Works Department to inspect nearly every manhole. I think we've got nearly all of them. The town Public Works Department was a huge help, and actually we worked with them to show them what we were doing for the inspections and then let them continue on, so that in the future, if there's new infrastructure installed, the Public Works Department knows how to enter that information into the GIS data set.
Have left the meeting.
So all of this information was compiled into a GIS map. Each of the assets, which is the mains and the manholes, has information associated with it, so that the Public Works Department has access to that information at their fingertips. They just need to, they can do it on a tablet, computer, they have the software installed on their phone, they can access that information right at their fingertips. So it's a really useful tool for them just in day-to-day operation. So then we looked at, as part of the evaluation on the next slide, the type of material, when it was installed, any records that the town had of having issues with that, where there were, maybe needed to make repairs, where there was a frequent clogging problem. It's really difficult because these assets are below the ground, so you can look at the manholes, but it's hard to assess the condition of the mains without using specialty equipment to video camera every single one, which is quite costly and time consuming. So we base a lot of our assessment on the repair history, records from the town, date of installation, and material. Next slide. So the data, junk in, junk out. So the data that we have is only as good as the information we are able to collect. So as the Public Works Department gathers new information, they will need to update the GIS system and
Has joined the meeting.
conditions. If they make any upgrades, they can go in there and update it. So as it should be kind of a working tool that they can use to keep track of their assets. Slide.
Do it?
So the condition, as I said earlier, was based on pipe age. So obviously as a pipe ages, it can start to fail, cracks, holes, but also pipe slope, because if a pipe is not at a steep enough slope, it can cause solids to settle, which will as projects are identified that maybe it's a high-risk area, some additional exploration with video inspections should be completed to better identify the condition. Next slide. So then we look at the probability of failure, which there's a table here that talks about the different types of material and what would we assign for the probability of failure based on those types of material. And that's based on, guidance from documented studies and experience that we've had. Basically, BC pipe is very brittle, and so, but it will last as long as it isn't disturbed. PVC is fairly modern, so it's low, so we kind of based it on industry knowledge. Next slide. consequence of failure is basically if it fails, how bad is it going to be? So if there is a failure right down on Main Street and it causes all the, a bunch of businesses to be out of service, that's a pretty big problem. But if it's at the end of a line where there's maybe 2 houses, it doesn't have as large of an impact. So the consequence of failure is based on how big of an impact a failure would have. And also, there's a failure next to, like the failure of the pump station at Shaw's. That sewage flowed into a waterway, so that was had a lot of consequence to that failure. So proximity to environmental resources is also taken into consideration. Next slide. So when you combine your probability of failure and consequence of failure, it plot on a risk matrix. So basically, if you have that has a high probability failure and a high consequence of failure, then it's going to be a high risk. So we want to pay attention to those assets that have high risk. And then, low risk assets you may not need to worry about until they become more critical. So there's a map on the next slide that shows where the high risk areas are that were identified as part of this study. Can't see it very well, it's quite blurry.
It's pretty small in person as well. So.
Yeah, usually we're on a huge screen,
Yeah.
so that's a regular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the next slide then. We have a table that kind of talks about it a little bit. So level of service goals. So I mentioned earlier that you should be operating your system and basing your investments and the program on meeting level of service goals. So they are established to keep customers informed, to identify the costs attributed to maintaining the level of service. So basically it's, how many breaks a year are acceptable? How much time should it be before we notify someone of an outage? And if you go to the next slide, we have some examples. Actually, these are the actual level of service goals that we worked with the Public Works Department to develop. So it talks about, number of main breaks, number of backups, permit violations. And working with the Public Works Department, we identified what was acceptable, what had been in recent years, and what their goal was. And so the idea here is that it will be tracked based on actual performance, and then they can evaluate what do we need to do to improve our performance to meet the level of service goals. Next slide. So out of this, we identified 3 projects, 3 pretty substantial projects to address the high-risk assets. Those projects are Sub-Area 2, which is, I can see it's in red right there, off of at the Brickyard Road pump station label there. And then Project 2 is Cottage Street, and Project 3 is an area called Sub-Area 6, which is down Union Street. Next slide. So we tried to identify a project time frame based on these goals and the high-risk assets. So Project 1, which is Sub-Area 2, has already gone through preliminary engineering, so we have a pretty good cost estimate for that project, which is $5.7 million. Project 2, Cottage Street, would be ideally 3 to 6 years out. And that project cost is $4.5 million, and Project 3 is Sub-Area 6 with almost $2.3 million project costs. So these are capital projects. They're also, kind of regular maintenance costs that are looked at in this plan. The capital projects, you'll typically be going for some funding from the SRFs or USDA, trying to look for some assistance from those agencies, just because you can't pay for these types of capital projects, not just directly out of your budget. So the next slide covers a funding strategy. Next slide.
Yeah, I think it might, there we go. It's, might be disconnecting.
So we looked at historical changes in the sewer budget, and it looks like over the past 4 years, the total budget has changed by about 20%. We looked at how each project, or the total project amount, could be funded with different agencies and local funding to see how that would impact rates. They are all causes quite a substantial rate change, as you can see in the bottom table. The best possible funding scenario at $246 a year. So it's pretty substantial. It's not unusual for us to develop one of these programs and find that the rate changes required are difficult to actually achieve. So on the next slide, we have a summary of how your rate in Littleton compares to the average state of New Hampshire rate of $678 a year. You're currently at $610 a year, so you're a little below the average, but certainly not $246 a year below the average. But this is very preliminary, so as you look at these areas, you'll need to do some more investigation. You need to do more investigation work with the police department to get these numbers better refined. So as of right now, the total for all three of those projects is $12.5 million. So I think Sharon Knopf from New Hampshire DES had a couple things that she wanted to discuss related to the asset management program.
Can you see, is Shannon on there?
She is.
Yep.
She may.
So wait a,
Maybe she can't hear me very well.
Okay, the live stream's off again. I mean, you can get maybe 90 seconds on the live stream. There's no audio on the live stream.
Doing our best.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Not on the live stream. I don't know what's going on. Somebody got a laptop in front of them.
Hello? Listen? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Sharon, we can hear you.
Okay, good. First off, I want to say kudos to Liz for taking on us.
their microphone.
It does sound like you guys are under attack right now.
Yeah. Whatever the moving around, the live stream's not working. This is brutal. Come on. Come on.
I just want to say kudos for taking on asset management, and I don't know if that's an echo or, but keep going with the program. You're going to be taking on the next phase, starting with your pump stations and the wastewater treatment plant. That's going to give you more information about the system. I don't know if there was kind of aha moments when you realized that you have almost $30 million of assets buried in the ground. But that asset management can help you cost effectively manage those valuable assets. And it'll also help you with future loan requirements like the sustainability plan requirements. As long as you keep your asset management program active, you will meet those requirements, and that's one less requirement for a loan that you've got to, one less loop you've got to jump through. And Andrea, for you, is it possible to line any of the sewers instead of replacement to save some of the costs going forward?
For sub-area 2, we did look at that. And so those costs were pretty valuable. Those sub-area 2 costs have been developed through preliminary engineering phase. For the other two areas, that is a possibility and could provide a cost savings. We did our estimates based on replacement, just because that's the most conservative.
Okay, so hopefully those costs will come down, so the sewers can be lined instead of replaced. Another thing to really think about, you've got your rate at price per cubic foot, and that doesn't really mean anything to a typical user. So if you can put it into price per gallon, it's actually less than a penny a gallon. That means something. People can picture a gallon of water. If you can put those bills and the terms, put the rate in terms that people can understand on their bills, that helps them support what they're paying for and understand it better. I don't know if you guys have any questions for the
I don't think so. Andrea, did you have any questions for Doug?
This is Doug Damko. I don't have any further questions.
Okay. What's the timing for the kickoff for the vertical asset management program?
Sharon, I think we were going to discuss the preliminary engineering, and then whether they were going to move forward with that, which we'll be discussing shortly today, and then we'll decide, the kickoff after that. So hopefully soon.
Okay, sounds good. Hopefully we can come up with a smoother platform to do that.
Yeah, we're all kind of breaking the ice here with trying to make the meeting work, a public meeting.
Yes, we're all learning.
Okay, with that, next up we had a sub-area 5 construction review. Andrea, did you want to go over that? And Chad, we may want to move the camera back over to the TV for the PowerPoint for that.
Breaking up on that, it's hard to...
Yeah. Andrew, did you want to come back then to this for the motion on that discussion?
See, I don't have the report in front of me now.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you want to go ahead and take that up right now.
So I'm just thinking, do either one of you have questions for either Sharon or Andrea before we get to the motion part?
Excuse me, you can't hear anything. Are we talking about Mill Street yet, or
Okay.
the live stream is not working?
Yeah,
It's quit again,
Jim.
and nobody can hear anything.
Jim, we're just still in the first discussion with Andrea and Sharon. So we're just asking if anybody has any questions for them at this point. But we have not gotten to Mill Street yet, sub-area 5. If we don't have any questions, then I would say let's I entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to authorize the use of up to $175,000 from the sewer fund for wastewater treatment plant septic receiving improvements project.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
I don't think we're there yet.
Who?
Andrew, Doug.
Ed Duffy.
I've joined the meeting.
Who just said that we're not there yet?
So the next, all right. So with the wastewater collection system asset management update, there's no actual recommendation at this time.
Okay.
The wastewater treatment plant, PER, which is the septic preliminary engineering report. That's where we're at right now. And,
Okay.
But Andrea, on your slides, we have sub 5 construction budget review. Is that something that you want to
Yes.
take up next?
Well, do we want to make a motion regarding the PER?
I think, Andrea, did you have additional information you were going to present on the PER? Is that
Yes.
after this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we'll
All
take
right.
that up. That'll work. Okay, so Andrea, right now we have the sub 5 construction budget review up on the slide. If you want to take it from here.
Okay. If you go to the current budget slide, so Littleton has recently completed a big project on Union Street. And on the plus side, we have some money left over to spend. So on the current budget, slide, there's approximately $140,000 left over from the work that was completed last year. And at the beginning of that project, when we got bids in, the bids came in higher than anticipated, so we removed some work from the project, which included removing work on Mill Street. Now that we've found we have funds left over, we would like to, you can go to the next slide, add that work back in. So on the Mill Street budget slide, we have an estimate from the contractor that completed the work on sub-area 5. There's some contingency in engineering. That's the contingency is just based on the construction cost, 5%. Engineering is left over from the previous budget for sub-area 5. So it gives a total cost of $269,795. The previous construction cost and the Mill Street cost, along with the addition of some granite curb that the town has requested to be added in, are listed under total cost for completing Mill Street. When that is compared to the total funding available, it leaves approximately $146,000 of local share. When the project was originally started for sub-area 5, even with the items removed, including Mill Street, the town had committed to providing $132,300 in local share. So we were able to complete the sub-area 5 project without any local share and with an actual excess of what you saw on the previous slide of $140,000. So the town can complete Mill Street, add that work back in, and the local share, instead of $132,000, would be approximately $146,000. We have, on the next slide, we have a draft change order that has been approved by DES. In discussions with the town, the goal would be to complete construction as early as possible in the spring. As we all know, spring in New England is weather dependent, and construction season in New England is weather dependent, but the goal would be to complete it by May 15th to allow the area to be fully restored before Memorial Day. Andrew, or Doug, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just know from in previous times, I think it's our second or third attempt to try to get this project completed. We initially had planned to do it around this time. We were trying to make sure that it was either before Memorial Day or after Columbus Day. When the opportunity came up that we do have some excess funds from the original project and we could get it done in that time period, we said, okay, let's take a look. In your packets, I talk about right now, really, the idea is to let the select board decide, do we try to accomplish this now with grant funds available? Or do we want to put, is there ever going to be a good time? Probably not. This is a project that no one will ever want to happen. I think if we don't move forward with it at right now, it's probably not likely to be accomplished within the next couple of years. And I would recommend that we get maybe sign-offs from the budding business owners saying that we won't be held liable for any sewer or stormwater failures. But really it's up to, I think, the select board. We're looking for direction as to how we'd like to proceed, but we'd like to try to get it done. right now or in the future. I don't know if Doug or Andrea has anything else to add.
I think my biggest concern right now, of course, none of us planned on COVID-19. And I think because of the businesses having to close on Mill Street or be very limited as far as their sales, I would like to see us, and I certainly want Chad and Roger to check in too, but I would like to see us, if we can, maybe even if we could extend the 140,000 or whatever it's going to be, to at least give some of those businesses a chance to recoup. That is my concern.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard times for them. Some may not survive. So I don't know why we couldn't push it out till 2021 like we had said last year, and make sure everybody's recouped and see if we can get this thing going.
I mean, I could certainly appreciate trying to use non-sewer user funds and non-taxpayer funds. And it is a good time of year. That being said, with the situation that we're in right now, the pandemic, I just think it's too much. The timing just doesn't work with this pandemic, and we need to do everything we can to support these businesses and help them with business. It doesn't do us any good if we lose half or 3/4 of the businesses on Mill Street. It just does nothing for us. So as much as I would love to use non-taxpayer and non-sewer user funds, maybe we can get it pushed off an exception because of the timing to give it another year. Maybe 2021 is a good time to go, but right now I just can't see moving forward with it at this time.
Yeah, I mean, one of some of the other considerations, just like, even with the COVID thing going on right now, businesses actually closed, is now going to be the best time, actually, because there's probably
Andrew,
limited
we
access.
can't hear you.
Yeah, I was just curious too, and
Absolutely impossible to hear.
yeah, and we're just curious as to what businesses are still functioning, and is it a good time just because the businesses are closed to actually do it with as little?
No, it's
interaction?
not. No, it is not.
Right. And
No.
and in thinking about that, just as where the impacts are, some of the things.
We can't hear you.
Some of the other, Jim, you're welcome to come down. Some of the other considerations were to just, this isn't going to be convenient for anyone. Is there ways that construction could actually be done in segments to allow access to happen on either side? That's something that we had talked about. We also explored the concept of night work, which I don't think we have a full grasp on. We looked at that, I think it was 2 years ago, Andrea, and I don't know if we have any new information on night work as an option, but. Did you have any new information on
The funds from
Yeah.
the funds from the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund that are currently in place need to be used by August.
There's no way to get an extension on that, Andrea, considering the current situation?
I can ask, but it was based on the closeout of the project. It's August. They need all the pay requests in by August, so they have time to process them by October.
Yeah.
I can check with them.
What about
Shannon LaRock is on.
Yeah. Oh, Shannon is
On the line.
still on?
It looks like it, but he's muted.
Yeah, Shannon, is there a possibility to extend the grant deadline?
I'm not sure if you can hear me or not.
We can.
Okay. I don't deal with the financial piece of it. I'm more involved with the construction, but as Andrea said, the loan is structured such that the proceeds are supposed to be spent down and completely within a year of completion the base project. And there still needs to be time for grants management to get amortization schedules together, and so the first loan payment would be able to be paid no later than 1 year after substantial completion of the base project. So I think that's where that August deadline comes in, to have all disbursement requests in. So again, it's Beth Malcolm is the one that could answer that question better, but based on my understanding, I would say that that's the drop dead date for expending all funds in this loan.
And Andrea, could you speak to the possibility of doing night work?
Night work?
Yes.
We had looked at it a couple years ago, and basically what we found is it would double the amount of time that the project took and likely increase the cost by $75,000 to $80,000. I've reached out to J.A. McDonald to see if those numbers are still accurate, and I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Yeah, and I know there's been criticism about us looking at this. Obviously we're looking at this well before the COVID. Something else that in consideration for that too is like when Main Street phase 1 was completed. That was also a pretty dark economic time, and I think that at that time it was actually used for time to justify getting it done. I'm not saying that the board proceed one way or the other, but we would look for your direction. We still do have information we're waiting on the night work. I don't know if you want to give us direction without that yet.
I would say we don't move forward at this time with it, and we wait. I think we still have plenty of planning that we can do in terms of traffic during construction. I know in that handout that Doug gave, there was 5 to 6 weeks of closing the road all day, which I think we need to work on and stakeholders in the area in terms of deliveries and transportation. I can only imagine what it would do to Rogers' business if Mill Street was closed, not to mention several other that are on that road. So even if night was an option, which I don't even know if it is right now, I think we still have too many things to work out and discussions that need to be had before we can proceed with this project. I think it's a valiant effort to try to use outside funds, but right now I don't think it's something that we need to proceed with for the 2020 construction season.
I mean, none of us planned on this COVID-19, but all of us have to make adjustments, and I think, if they're willing to push that out in light of this, that would be extremely helpful as well.
Good. All right. If you don't mind, we'll move on to the Littleton Wastewater Treatment Plant. And Andrea,
What's the resolution there? Sorry, it's really difficult this year. What's the resolution on it?
We are not making a decision, Jim, because we don't have enough information, and because of what is going on, we're going to wait until we get some other answers.
No, the businesses need a decision. We need to either be doing this and reacting as quickly as possible. And this couldn't be handled any more poorly. We need to make a decision right now and move forward. The best decision is to can this, to walk away from it. It's not ready. It's not ready for prime time. This thing's been handled about as poorly as could be. Not surprisingly. And the best thing to do is for the select board to show the leadership and pull the plug on this right now. March 23rd, 5:45 p.m. Kill it. You're not going to leave the businesses twisting in the wind for however long you guys need, okay? You need a decision now. Crisis time. Make decisions.
We don't have enough information right now, Jim, to make a decision, because if we can push the funding out...
When will you have? When will you have? You have enough information. You have the information that we are in the middle of a crisis right now. Doing this spring will put people out of business. How much more information do you need?
We're waiting for some more information from Andrea. Number one, we want to
What information are you waiting for?
We want to find out if night work can be done, and that
What
doesn't...
information are you waiting for?
We want to find out if night work can be done, and second of all, if we can extend the monies that are available to either late fall or possibly even into 2021. But none of us have enough answers right now to make a decision.
Can we move on to the wastewater?
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. So Andrew,
So we're just,
gonna move to
can't watch on the video.
we're gonna move to the wastewater.
What?
treatment plant.
Can't hear.
Yeah.
We're going to move
Wow.
on to
Okay.
the
Well-
wastewater treatment plant.
All right, I'll sign off, and I'll sign off, and I just want to just note that, you know, I've had a couple dozen conference calls since all this crisis came in, and this has set the bar as low as absolutely functionally possible. Okay, so I think we need to have a little more respect for the taxpayers and the business owners and the property owners downtown, and perform, plan, get ahead of something. What you're putting us through is absolutely inexcusable. Inexcusable.
Okay, thank you, Jim. We're going to move on now to the wastewater treatment plant asset management.
Best of luck. Jim Alden
Has left the meeting.
All right, Andrea, we're gonna do the Littleton wastewater treatment plant. We've got the first.
Yes.
And I don't know if you wanna take it from there.
Yep, so there's a phase 2 asset management plan. It's going to start for the vertical assets, as I mentioned earlier. So that would be the wastewater treatment plant and the pump stations. There's another $30,000 in loan forgiveness from the state to help with this. And there was a bond approved in 2019 for the CWSRF loan, and which includes that $30,000 of loan forgiveness to do this work. So it will include an inventory and evaluation similar to what we discussed of the wastewater treatment plant pump stations. So on the next slide, also at the wastewater treatment plant, we've been discussing doing a preliminary engineering report, which would basically evaluate the entire plant, look at how it's functioning, look at the permit requirements, look at projected growth, and try and identify ways to improve the plant and alternatives for improvements and costs to make the plant function better and better plan for the future so that the plant can serve the town for the next 20 years. So the estimated budget for that, for the engineering study, is $72,400. We've been talking, the town and myself met with rural development a few weeks ago to talk about a potential $30,000 grant to assist with that project cost. And so I felt like they were fairly positive when we were discussing the potential of getting that grant. But we won't hear till April. At least that's what we were told at that time. Did you want to discuss anything further on that, Andrew or Doug?
Yeah, I don't have anything else further. Doug, did you have anything?
Nope. No, I think you did a good job on that, Andrea. That kind of is it. I myself, as the public works director, have a high interest in making sure we have a good engineering analysis on the plan, you know, with the various projects that the town has dealt with, industrial discharge permits and different issues like that. I want to have a better handle on what our plant do and what improvements need to be done. So I really am strongly supporting this project.
And, let's see, so did we have a couple more slides on that, or? I think that was just the asset management, right? We're gonna shift to the preliminary engineering. I don't know if people are still there, Chad, you wanna check? Crashed.
I just think people are having a hard time hearing you, Andrew. Who is it that you want to?
Oh, so, Andrea, we should be moving to from the, asset management to the preliminary engineering.
Are you there, Andrea?
Yes, sorry, I was muted. I don't want to be
Okay.
having background noise.
Okay. Yep, so now we're moving,
So,
yep, the asset management project is underway, and now we're moving into the preliminary engineering report for the wastewater treatment plant.
yeah, I think Doug and I just talked about evaluating the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, and so for the select board to consider a motion to authorize the expenditure in support of that with the potential for offsetting grants. I don't know if does the select board have any questions about the preliminary engineering? Basically, we're taking the information from the asset management plan and then beginning the actual preliminary engineering for that project to carry out the improvements at the plant. The cost for the preliminary engineering is estimated to be at $72,400, and we anticipate to get a $30,000 grant, I believe through USDA Rural Development. That would funds. But what we would need from the board is the authorization to spend up to $72,400 from the sewer fund.
Do we need to also give authorization to collect grants, or is that at a separate meeting?
So what? Yeah, there'll be a separate meeting if we're awarded the grant and we actually get to the point where we can accept it. Then the select board would make a motion to accept and to expend the monies. So.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion to authorize the use of up to $72,400 from the sewer fund to connect the wastewater treatment plant conduct the wastewater treatment plant preliminary engineering project.
Second?
No, second, yeah.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 And that's all
Now,
coming out of
Andrea,
funds.
next up I have the wastewater septage receiving improvements. So in previous years, we installed a card reader system to better allocate and charge for available septage receiving capacity. Revenues experienced a significant increase, and the project had about a 2-year return on investment. New upgrades are needed to better meet the community demand while not impacting the treatment process or costs. The project will reduce the plant restrictions on receiving with a predicted short return on investment. The project is estimated to cost, I put under, but it's actually looking like it might be over. And Andrea, you and I have been back and forth about total amount for the project. Originally, we had anticipated about $175,000 project with about a 2-year return on the investment. And I think that there was the recent addition of some sort of a covering that we have to build over the treatment plant. I'll let you talk about the project and then touch on the overall cost.
Yeah. So first I have a slide that shows kind of the historical revenue for the septage receiving. As you can see, there was a drop in 2018. There was some limitations at the plant. As you may remember, the centrifuge had some problems, so they had to reduce the amount of septage they could accept. But on a typical year, it's somewhere around $130,000, give or take. So on the next slide, the town is looking at I think the wastewater treatment plant operator maybe suggested the addition of a unit to pre-treat the septage that comes in, and that would improve the capacity of the plant to accept more septage. As you can see, it's a decent source of revenue for the town. So the unit that they have, we're looking at a few different options for the unit, and it can come with all sorts of bells and whistles or be a pretty simple unit. Price range that we're looking at so far is $130,000 to $375,000. I'm working with the town and the operator to try and hone that in to figure out exactly what options would best serve the town. Any of these types of treatment units, and speaking with the representatives from the the companies that sell these. In this climate, they highly recommend an enclosure, like a building around the unit to prevent freezing. There's a water line that runs into this unit to help clean the screens, and there's the connection point and the discharge point, and basically on units that they've had installed that were just insulated externally with heat tape, they've experienced a lot of issues and it's become a headache for the operators. So we have an estimated cost of $115,000 for a building. There's associated plumbing and electrical, estimated at $25,000. And then the best site we've identified at this time would require the existing office trailer to be shifted slightly, so there would be a cost associated with moving that trailer, moving the electrical service for it, and the water and sewer service for that trailer. So there's a number in there to accommodate that. So there's quite a wide range of cost depending on what options the town settles on for this unit. We're working right now with the suppliers and the operator and Doug and Andrew on what's, it's grit removal, grease removal, things like that. So what's going to best serve the wastewater treatment plant and make this the best pretreatment unit for what type of septic is received at the town.
All right, and we had an amount so that we could get the project going. It sounds like there's a couple of different options. Do we want to go for the low amount, or do you want to wait and come back with another recommendation?
Andrew, I think it's probably best to get pinned down what exactly the operator and working with Doug to figure out, what options are going to best serve the type of septage that is being received at the plant, so we can have a better number to present to the board.
Okay, so no motion at this time?
No.
All right, and Madam Chairman, I think Dr.
Do you have any questions?
Roger, Chad, do you have any questions? Okay.
No.
No? Good. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. And I appreciate the effort to keep this moving. I know it's not as smooth as everybody had, maybe hoped, but I appreciate the effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe Dr. Duffy is on the, okay.
If you guys don't mind switching around on the agenda,
Yeah.
it goes more on the.
Yeah, no, let's go.
Dr. Duffy, are you on the line?
Yes, sir.
Chad Miller, good to hear you.
So I'm prepared to tell you a lot of, well, I hope everybody's doing well and trying to maintain some reasonable physical distance. I have a whole bunch of stuff to tell you, but I really want to tailor it to what you want to, at least you're not used to hearing this too much, but I want to tailor it to what you want to hear. I can tell you that the community at large is holding up pretty well from a public health point of view. I would say that our environment people are more or less staying calm, and we believe that the amounts of COVID-19 in the community is probably low. We have some statistical analysis to make us believe that with 23 actual patients in the area, and that includes outside the town of Littleton, of course, but 23 people in the area, we would have admission to the hospital with a sick patient, and we currently don't have any. So, these things are all estimated. You guys understand it when it comes to estimating projects and project costs and all that, but this is what we think right now. Right now, the social distancing is working in the region. We're all spread out anyway, more or less, but it seems to be working. You got to understand, it's not continue to work to keep it at bay. It'll just work to spread out the caseload, and that's what we need to have happen. So LRH opened a incident command on February 27th, actually, and we're connected with the State Emergency Operations Center automatically to a web platform called Timeirame. we monitor it and automatically update it. We have a central telephone clearing desk, which is anybody can call, or even our internal people can call. It's 575-6400. You'll get somebody that can either answer the question or get you the answer before hanging up. So I've also talked to Chief Smith and Mill Bratz about what we've been up to. Make sure that Chief Smith has what he needs from us, and he'll know, you probably won't be surprised that he's in very good shape and holding his own quite nicely and have plans anyway. He really planned very well. We're coordinating with Amanuset Community Health Services. The EMS has been updated and given support, and we have a website updated daily and internal communications also. So we've changed our operations quite a bit. You've probably heard a lot about that. I won't bore you with that unless you want to talk about it. 100% of our individuals are screened outside the building. So nobody gets inside the building without being screened outside. And I want to say one thing about testing. We currently are at the mercy of a private lab called LabCorp for our testing. It's about a 4 to 5 day turnaround for that. So we can do almost unlimited, but then we start running out of other supplies. So LabCorp will accept as many as we send them, but it just takes so long to get an answer. We're hoping to have testing right at the hospital, 45-minute turnaround time. We can do 170 a day. Sometime in a week or two. We're totally dependent at the whims and wishes of our vendors on this. So that's what we are up to. And if you want to ask questions, this would be probably a good time, but I have a little more, depending on whether it comes up in a question.
Thank you, Dr. Duffy. Either one of you have?
No, it sounds like you're doing a good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And Chief Mercier,
I just want to let you know that we have a search plan.
What's that?
I didn't understand.
What did you
I
say?
want to let you know we have a search plan and we have a mathematical construct to help us understand what we will need to do. I've been in discussions with the Department of Health and Human Services and the National Guard, and we're angling to have LRA set up as for one of those National Guard hospitals. We're actually talking about this last week, so that might come to fruition. Hopefully it does. I think Littleton's the best site for the North Country. It's on the interstate. We have generally 25 beds. We can flex easily to 55, and we can actually do a lot more than that. But we're going to run out of nurses. That's that limiting factor on that. We've got some extra ventilators coming in at the end of the week, but that still is going to be nursing care is going to limit what we can do with that. I also want to thank Chief Mercier. He gave us a big help and a boost to look at our outside center that we built in our garage, and now that's up to speed and ready to go to handle overflow in the emergency department.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Duffy.
Paula?
Madam Chairman,
You're welcome.
Chief Mercier.
Chief Mercier, would you like to add anything to that?
So he was having an issue with his microphone earlier, so I don't know if he got it squared away or not, but if not, I can give a little bit of an update. We've been kind of tag teaming a little bit, but we had a meeting with town officials, department heads fairly recently to try to coordinate efforts. And we're meeting again tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be a big topic of discussion. We're just continuing to monitor the situation. We've ordered additional cleaning supplies, additional PPE as much as you can get. Ordering anything right now is a challenge. Things that we haven't had an issue with, like gloves, for instance, are now on back order. But early on in this, we ordered some extra equipment. It's extra supplies with other equipment. And we're just continuing to monitor. I know that both chiefs are involved with almost daily conference calls with the state emergency management down at the IPOC in Concord. And I've been involved some with the multi-agency coordinating agency here, which is trying to coordinate supplies. Chief says he's going to call me in a minute. So, I might have missed something important.
Yeah, and from I can just say from the town side, you know, we put out a press release and put something up on the website, but all town buildings are closed to the public, and we're continuing to function. We can do almost every service that we've been doing just via online or email or phone call, and so really just encouraging everybody to keep working with us business as usual, just do it online or the phone. One thing I would say is at the transfer station, you'll notice at the transfer station, our guys aren't really able to go and help people unload. And also, there's no more, all your recycling has to be pre-sorted. They can't help with sorting anymore. And we're not taking certain types of paper, like shredded paper right now, is going to be off of this. And throw your tissues away. Don't try to recycle them. That's something else that Brian's told me. So, and then just one other thing you'll notice is with the police department will go with EMS. Often they would have a practice of getting out and actually helping, going into the residents and being there on site. Right now, if the police officers show up, they're going to, if they show up on the scene, they're not going to go inside. They're going to stay in the car and come in if needed. One of the issues that we have is we have to keep our guys healthy. If we move into a situation where we're understaffed, and it could impact the life and safety of the community. We have been working on contingency plans so we can look at what levels of staffing we need, what kind of services we can continue to still operate. And so, all that's underway in coordination with the fire department, police department, public works, all the departments, and also with the state attorney general and the EOC of the state.
Jessica has left the meeting.
So that's what I have for a COVID update.
Chief's on the phone. He just wanted to check. I don't know if it's going to work with the conference call.
Tell him to turn down his volume from whatever he's listening on. Needs to turn the volume off.
All right, you should be on. I had to mute everybody else though.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chief.
Just to give you a brief update, the police department, fire department, and highway department have submitted their succession plans. So we do have succession plans in place in case we start to lose staff COVID-19. We all have implemented some response protocols and policies. As of today, the fire department updated their response protocols. We added an algorithm that was provided to us by the CDC. The algorithm will help us and give us some guidance as to what to do with a first responder who was exposed to COVID-19. All of us are limiting access to our facilities. Starting tomorrow, we at the fire station will be doing screenings for not only employees reporting to duty, but also any visitors to the station. Any employee who has an elevated temperature will be asked to go home and contact their primary care physician. Currently, we have fit tested our employees to the N95 masks. We offer fit testing to all other departments in town. We are now making sure that every employee has an employee ID in preparation if at some point in time, and it may never happen, that we have a shelter in place, or a curfew. Basically, the employees will need an ID to properly identify themselves to law enforcement if they're responding to an incident after the curfew. We've established some decon procedures for the department and for the ambulance. We've been working with our workman's comp insurance provider, Primex, and they've been providing us with some guidance pertaining to workman's comp for all the employees.
Robert has left the meeting.
We're actively pursuing supplies. As you well know, supplies are hard to come by. Right now, we're working with the state emergency management, and they are talking to Washington. Hopefully, there'll be some supplies coming our way through the national stockpile. We've made several requests, as has every other town in the state. Basically, we're on a wait and see with the supplies. We are keeping our employees up to date, providing them with training and information.
Hey Chief, if I can interrupt, if community members have extra supplies such as hand sanitizer or gloves or masks, what is it that is needed, and what is the protocol for people who want to drop something off at a certain location?
I would say yes, we could use masks and hand sanitizer, disinfectants. The protocol would be relatively simple. Put them in a box or bag, go to one of the departments and ring the doorbell or knock on the door. Somebody will assist you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
You're welcome. We're revisiting our shelter policies, and we're working with the clergy and other volunteers in the event that we may have to activate our shelters. I do know that Captain Miller has been working with New Hampshire Community Health. The MACE in our area, which is a multi-agency coordinating entity, is partially activated. They too are in the process of trying to find medical supplies for our region. We've discussed the possible activation of either external or internal pods, which are points of distribution in the event that there's any type of medication that might be offered to the public. And we also reviewed our policies and procedures regarding our acute care centers, which will aid the hospital in handling the surge to expand on the number of patients who would need hospital care. I know for a fact that regarding testing, Dr. Duffy mentioned testing. He mentioned a time frame of a week or so before we get the test result. The governor passed a law in which first responders now receive priority testing. If in fact we have to test any of our first responders, that's police, fire, highway, anyone who's a first responder that's working with the town and trying to keep the lights on. Basically, we can get testing done within a 24-hour period. We can get that result back. We're actively participating in all the conference calls every day. We're in direct communication with New Hampshire Emergency Management on a daily basis. At this point in time, there has been no order or no word that the governor will issue a shelter in place or that he will be issuing an order to close a business. That right now is not on the table. I've been hearing a lot of rumors, and we're getting a lot of phone calls asking if in fact we're going to have a shelter in place or curfew. I know other states have done it, but basically here in New Hampshire, currently that is not on the table at this time. And obviously we're tracking our costs, because at some point in time we anticipate the opportunity to receive federal reimbursement for our costs for this pandemic. Do you have any questions of me?
No.
No.
No, I don't think we have any questions.
Think you
Chief,
covered
thank
the
you.
bases.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we could, if you want, go back to closer to the regular agenda.
Okay. All right, so we were on, actually, we had finished up with Public Works, correct?
Correct.
So we want to move on to the ratification of tax credit certification.
Are we doing anything with the school, SCU 84, the officer, or is that a?
We can see if she's on yet. Could you see if superintendent?
Can't say that. I did not see you.
And so while he's checking, I'll just say what was going to happen tonight is really she just wanted to present the school's position on a resource officer and some ideas about how they would like to partner with the town on that. There wasn't any action being requested of the board tonight.
Right, I just didn't know if she was on.
Is Superintendent Cascadin on the line?
If the board wanted to, I could, or maybe one of you want to read the letter into the record, and we can just notice it's something that we'll consider in the future, or we can wait for a future meeting.
Why don't we read the letter, and then we can
Yes.
consider it for a future meeting. This would not take effect if it was put into place until potentially this coming school year, correct? Is that what they're?
I think that we'd have to look at it in the finance of it. It'd probably be something that we'd have to wait on town meeting in order to come up with the funds for.
Okay, all right. So this is, and you want me to read the one from Ann Wiggett, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So this is addressed to Andrew Dorset, Town Manager, Franco Rossi, Chair, Board of Selectmen, Carrie Gendro, Vice Chair, Board of Selectmen, Chad Stearns, and this was dated December 16th, 2019. Dear Andrew and Board of Selectmen, on November 18, 2019, the Littleton School Board unanimously approved a request for placement of a school resource officer in the Littleton School District. We encouraged the interim superintendent, Corinne Cascadin, and Chief Paul Smith of the Littleton Police Department to collaborate on a partnership model that supports prevention, education, and communication in a proactive means of making our schools and community as safe as can be. The welfare of our students are of primary importance within our community. We look for your support as well. Investing in our students with a school resource officer model adds to the safety and well-being of our residents. Please don't hesitate to contact me with further questions. Sincerely, Ann Wiggett, Chair, Littleton School Board.
And there was a letter that actually came in today. Does any of the board members have that letter yet?
No.
Don't have it. No.
Would one of the board members want to read this one? This one is from the interim superintendent, Roger.
Do you want to read it, Marge?
Let me just look at the other one real
Okay.
quick here. So go ahead.
All right, this is from interim superintendent, titled "Request to Pursue a School Resource Officer or Littleton School District, March 23rd, 2020. The Littleton School District requests a letter of support to develop a partnership with the Littleton Police Department to implement a school resource officer model in the Littleton schools in the fall 2020, contingent on successful grant funding. In the past 3 years, the Littleton schools have seen a significant increase in students with disruptive behaviors in the school environment. An example is 2017, 6 ED 317 juvenile petitions were filed with the Littleton Police Department, and currently in March 2020, there have been 30 ED 317 petitions filed. School demographics include more students that are from trauma-induced homes and upbringing, transient homelessness, and a rise in the substance use involved, including vaping. School safety for all students and the community at large becomes compromised as a result. Recommend 1 police officer for all schools to be contracted with the Littleton Police Department as a contracted service. 180 school days, 6 hours per day, a memorandum of understanding similar to other school models in other communities, example of Whitefield, Lancaster, and Berlin. The rationale for the need exists in attached documents. Youth Risk Behavior Survey, there's a link there. The New Hampshire School Safety Preparedness Task Force 2018 report, also with a link. Other supporting resources, Parent Information Center brief, and again, a link. Respectfully submitted, Corinne Cascade.
We'll get that letter.
Documentation.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
So, to put a police officer in the school, paid for by the school.
So they have
On
a
the school
specific proposal that they want us to take a look at, and Chief Smith and I were going to review it and
come back with some recommendations. In the request, it specifically, I think, addresses a certain number of hours, 180 school days, 6 hours a day. And in the memorandum, it does speak to being able to bill to the school in a similar way that we bill to outside entities that need police officers. So if there was a concert or a basketball game, we already do that sort of thing. I think it does leave a gap, and so the officer would technically be available when the school wasn't in session for work with the town, but there would be a gap between the funding and the revenue that comes in. So it's something that we'll need to talk about and review.
I did check with a friend of mine in Whitefield, and they say it works out well for them because in the summer it gives them another officer to help out with, because summer shifts, whether it's increased traffic here in town or vacations, it was nice to have that extra body at really a minimal cost to the department. But yeah, it'd be nice to see some more information on that and cost sharing and such.
Yeah.
Good. So the next, I guess, would be the.
Well, either that or I know I think the Chief Smith was on. I don't know if he has any input that he wants to share, if it's appropriate to share at that time. I don't know.
I think it's too premature at this point to really speculate or discuss the issue. I haven't had a chance to speak with the manager or the superintendent concerning an SRO. Even if the consideration is the MOU for contracted services, it's just really in the analysis of this to determine a funding model or how that individual will be deployed. So I think we're going to have to come back to you guys. And the one thing that is clear is what she outlined as far as the issues that the school does currently have.
Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. How long ago was it when we had an SRO up at the high school?
I think it was between 2008 and maybe 2010 was when that position was dissolved due to funding.
I think when I was in high school, Officer Keeney was there. So that was the 2001, 2002 time frame. He was at least there, I believe.
I don't think we had the support of the board at that time. Things are a little bit different now. School safety and certainly violent intruder issues are a lot different. Emergency management for school and culture is different. So again, I think we need to have some additional meetings with the superintendent and the town manager to try to make a good proposal for both boards.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, moving right along. I guess we can move on to now the ratification of tax.
So, the tax credit certification form ratification. So we've submitted an application that needs a certification. It's a tax credit application to begin work on phase 2 of the River District project. Phase 1 of the Riverfront Commons project includes the purchase and redevelopment of the Moreau parcel. As described in my last manager's report, which I'll get to you later, in alignment with the results of the community input during the 2019 Plan New Hampshire design charrette. Phase 2 includes the redevelopment of the barn structure on that parcel into a community event facility and landscaping needs of that site, also described in the Plan New Hampshire design charrette. Phase 3 will include a proposal to change the traffic pattern, ownership, and parking layout of River Glen Lane. Phase 1 has been mostly funded pending a donation commitments and already in hand Land Water Conservation Fund and Northern Borders Regional Commission grant amendments. We need amendments on both of those to change some of the items that were in the original application. The original grant applications included the construction of structures such as like an ice skating arena, concert arena, picnic pavilion. And at the Plan New Hampshire Design Charrette, it seemed like there was a unified opinion that we should keep the land as open as possible and make it a flex space. So what we're doing is going back to the original grant applications and trying to incorporate those changes into that so that the funders will agree to support. So phase 2 is the CDFA tax credit funding. This is what the certification allows for the application. And phase 3 right now is in really early preliminary development. And we're, with all projects, we try to keep all phases moving forward through whatever current process they're in simultaneously, so that we can continue the momentum and progress of the overall River District project. And part of the reason that we do that too is something that I think Littleton has been known for, which is leveraging already created finance or project development through grant matches and in-kind donations. And so we can build one project after the other. So phase 1 involved a $200,000 Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, $250,000 Northern Borders Regional Commission grant, or $175,000 in private donations. Those commitments are, we have 140, I think, committed, but given what just happened, we may experience a delay in that. And then $175,000, which was approved in Article 16 in this year's budget. Phase 2, we estimate to be around $450,000, and that's what we're applying for in the Community Development Finance Authority tax credit program. As of right now, I believe we have just under $300,000 in tax credit commitments. Again, as the application moves forward, that may change just based on whatever kind of economic things happen with the coronavirus. So phase 1 and 2 intended timeline. So again, that's phase 1 is the purchase and some basic site improvements. And phase 2 is some landscaping and parking improvements and barn renovation. So the time frame is on March 20th, we got voter approval. On April 20th, we'll be submitting a Tillotson Award, or we'll be hopefully hearing about a Tillotson Award. On April 20th, we also hope to have a notice to proceed from Northern Borders. By May, we'll hope to have our private donations in hand, an engineering RFP published for vendor and vendor selected. We hope by towards the end of May that we have the property secured, an energy audit completed, and by June 20th is when we would know if we were awarded the tax credit, which we're applying for now. By October, late October, we hope to have the engineering work done, and by December 20th, we hope to have all permits in place. This lot is on the river. It does not have shoreline exemption, so it will have to go through shoreline exemption and potential wetland permit applications. So we hope to, by January of next year, to have a construction RFP published and vendors potentially selected shortly thereafter. And then by March 21st of next year, we would hope to have all tax credits sold and released. April 21st through 22nd of next year is when we would hope to be in construction, and then January 22nd and March 22nd of 2021 have project inspections and closeout. So what I would be asking of the board is for you to consider an acknowledgement and approval of the application and the certification form, and to direct me to sign the CDFA certification form.
Do we want to go ahead and make a motion?
I will make a motion that the board acknowledge and approve of the application, and to further direct the town manager to execute the CDFA certification form.
Do we have a second? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good. Is it good?
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's been helping with that application. I know, John Hennessy and Dave Ernsberger and a number of others, Greg Eastman, and I know Chad's even been helping out with us on that, is really just trying to get those tax credits sold. I think, we'll wait and see kind of what actually comes of that, but we're really pushing forward, continue to push forward in all of our projects right now. So next up in my report, I have the EMS Ambulance Service Fund. So just a bit of background, the Board of Selectmen and EMS Commission adopted recommendations, and those are being accomplished. Please, you can see the attached fire department memo. And in that memo, it does cite, and we have Chad here, we'll go over that, the recommendations that were produced by MRI during our transition to fire-based EMS. Recommendation 1 was termination of our contract with Golden Cross that was completed in July 2019, I believe that's the correct date. Recommendation number 2 was create a separate business unit. We did that recently by voting in of Article 12. Recommendation number 3, obtain a temporary ambulance to initiate service. And this was, we went ahead and were able to accomplish 3 and 4, part of 4, by doing a purchase in arrears of an ambulance, which was formally approved in Articles 12 and 16. And then assign EMS transport to Littleton Fire and Rescue. We completed that in 2019. And operational funding, that's complete and ongoing in Article 13 to help create that. And then recommendation number 7, which was again to do with operational funding, and that's pending the purchase of a backup ambulance. In Articles 12 and 16 and 13 this year, with EMS service, we created an EMS revolving fund, and we took the funds that were already generated from the activity last year. It was a conservative number. We used $70,000 of that to put it into the fund. And what the fire department and town management is requesting is that we use those funds, those billed funds, to purchase a backup ambulance. And I'm going to turn it over to Chad to talk about the need for it, and if you also want to just cite some of the information that was in your memo to me and the board.
Sure. So my memo's on my computer, but I know it fairly well. So one of the key MRI recommendations is, I'm sure you're interested. I'll take it though, I appreciate it. So one of the MRI issued those recommendations, and the board at the time approved them. And in order to get us started, there was a lot of talk about purchasing a used ambulance to get us started. We're on a 28-day time frame to get fire-based EMS off the ground, and we didn't think we could accomplish the purchase of that used ambulance in that 28-day period and have it licensed and ready for use. So the better solution was to use the borrow feature, and the town of Whitefield graciously loaned us an ambulance that got us started. And then we purchased an ambulance or leased an ambulance more accurately and equipped it. So we never kind of went back to follow up on, or there's been a delay in getting back to follow up on the second ambulance and getting a used ambulance. And the reason for that is, with our call volume, there's really no good maintenance downtime to have for the ambulance. And while our mutual aid partners have been very helpful, and probably we've received more mutual aid historically than we have provided to other communities, those resources are getting really thin as well. And so it was time for us to actually move forward with the purchase of a used ambulance. We've looked for quite a while. MRI was helping us look, and we found one that came out of a municipal fire department off the Cape of Massachusetts. So it's been very well cared for. We got a quote for it from the company. It's a 2015 F550. This company, Specialty Emergency Vehicles, sold it to that department. They have since sold them a newer ambulance, so they know the full maintenance history of it, and it came highly recommended. They have others that they would be willing to sell us, but wouldn't recommend that we purchase. The reason we really like this ambulance is really its configuration is very similar to our current one, and it supports the geography we have here in Littleton. We also cover, as a matter of contract, Easton and Sugar Hill. We provide primary ambulance transport services for those communities. And so we feel like we need something that's four-wheel drive. And I've worked in a number of times where we didn't have four-wheel drive and we were able to get by. But this is one community that it's been a surprise how often that you really need four-wheel drive from either, there's no slope standard or regulation for driveways, and oftentimes we are out when the weather isn't good. So those two reasons alone make four-wheel drive really a necessity as far as an ambulance goes. And so we just feel like we're at that point. The fund's been established. we feel like we had overwhelming voter support at the polls for the project. And we really need to back up our current ambulance. We haven't been able to finish 100% putting it in service, meaning there's some equipment that needs to be mounted. And there's now a mechanical issue that we need to have repaired, but it's an electronic issue, and we're worried it's gonna sideline it for a number of days. So just would really strongly recommend that you authorize town manager to proceed with the purchase.
What are you using right now, Captain, for the ambulance?
So we have the new ambulance that we had purchased, which is in service and works very well. Things like oil changes, or if we had an unfortunate mechanical issue, we'd be calling another community to borrow an ambulance. And we've had to do that on a number of occasions. Even as a new vehicle, warranty issues pop up. We had an issue with the suspension that required it to be repaired. And we went a night without an ambulance, where we couldn't get a hold of the town that has allowed us to borrow them historically. We didn't get a return phone call, and so we went the night. Town dispatch will have to send a mutual aid ambulance to the town if needed. And so this just gives us that backup, so we can take an ambulance out of service for maintenance. The other item that became really big is we were on the front lines of COVID-19 before it was even named COVID-19. People aren't aware of this, but we transported a patient from a local urgent care center to the hospital. The crew that night, knowing very little about it, we had only had one confirmed case in the U.S. at that point, and the person had all the signs and symptoms, and had recently traveled from Wuhan, China. So we're very concerned. They did an extraordinary job, and we got back to the station. I came in to assist, just to make sure things went well, and we instantly had
joined the meeting.
And there was some questions about, is it deconned well enough and whatnot. And we had to make some really tough decisions.
Sanitized.
Waiting, we had 2 victims of an assault and potentially a third that needed medical treatment. We felt like we made all the right decisions, but it really stressed the system. And especially now with COVID-19, there's better guidance about how to decontaminate an ambulance, and that involves minutes, depending on which protocol you're using, whether it's 15 or 45 minutes at the least. So it's that's just another factor. And if we do have a mechanical failure of our primary ambulance right now, with the pandemic going on, this is my personal opinion, I don't know how willing communities will be to loan us equipment at this time, because equipment's going to be in short order. So the organization, not Greenwood, but rather Specialty Emergency Vehicles, has agreed to hold this ambulance until tonight, when they knew a decision would be made to determine whether we'd be able to move forward with it or not.
So it is all set and ready to go then?
So it is not all set and ready to go. We have to make some modifications to it that are really simple. Install the cot system, for example, that had been taken out because that department is recycling it, so we have to purchase another cot to put in there. And then we also we have a radio for it, but we have to put a radio in it. It should be programmed and ready to go, just a couple hours. Then we have to put the rest of the equipment in. It has to be inspected by the state. They've been very good about helping us with it when we put our first ambulance in service, doing it really quickly. But we'll still have to coordinate that, and with some of the difficulties with staffing at the state level, a lot of the EMS staff involved with the EOC and whatnot. I don't know quite what to expect about that. I'm thinking, if we can get all the stars to align, I think a good estimate is 3 weeks from today to put it in service if we were to purchase it. But again, that's an estimate. If we get the stars to align, it could be a matter of a couple days, but I don't think that's realistic.
If I remember correctly, with the second ambulance, it also opens up options of transporting the proper term from, for instance, hospital to hospital or something like that, where
transfer.
Transfer. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
The revenue, increased revenue streams essentially for the.
So there's a number of things that have to go in play for that. We're kind of doing that a little bit right now. We're helping residents home. So when we help a disabled person to the hospital and they can't go back home in a wheelchair van or a car, the hospital calls, like, hey, can you bring this person back to the River Glen or back to their residence? We do that now, but as soon as we put that patient on our cot, that ambulance is really out of service. This gives us the flexibility to be able to do something a little bit different with that, to be able to respond. And even today, Chief Mercy and I went on a call. We had 2 calls at the same time. One person was a woman screaming for help over a phone with no information, and the other one was a 2-year-old choking and turning blue. And we went in the ladder truck because it's the only vehicle we had left in the station where we would have taken the ambulance if we had had that today.
But to further answer your question, in order to get to that level where we're doing that on a regular, consistent basis, the interfacility transfers, we will have to do an additional we will have to make additional changes. It's not something that we're going to be able to probably accomplish, like I think, and Chad could correct me, but within the next 8 to 12 months. There's going to be some significant internal work that we need to do with the fire department and equipment and with the staff. So, but we're talking about it, and
Yeah, I don't want there to. I don't want it to sound like obtaining this ambulance is now putting us in the interfacility transfer business. Right. It is not. Obviously, we can't do it without it with just one ambulance. It's no question. But yeah, there's more that would have to be accomplished before we'd be able to do something like that.
But this is somewhat of a next step.
Correct.
Have you been physically able to go down and see this?
Yeah, I have. So the guy was. The guy that we've been dealing with, his name is Al. He's got a phenomenal reputation. So I tell him on the phone, Al, if you say it's good, it's good. He's like, nope, I'm not even going to talk to you about it until you come see it. And it's just kind of he's this old timer, and you go down there, and it's really there's this one. I hesitate to call it scratch on the door. I think just hitting tree branches, our ambulance has the same type of thing on it. And he says, do you want us to fix that or not? And so that was it. It was really clean. We have full maintenance history on it, like oil changes, like that level of detail. So I'm really confident. I like that option a lot better than going to a website and pulling up an ambulance and working with somebody we've never worked with before or doesn't have a reputation that we know. Like a lot of ambulances are resold out of New Jersey, for example. And you never quite know what you're getting. It is a used vehicle. I mean, anything can happen. But with Al standing behind it, I certainly have a tremendous amount of confidence.
Looking at the financial aspect of it, now that our budgets are passed and we have new funds set up, how does this affect what we presented to voters in terms of budget? Both, I know we can expend out of the fund, but overall expenses and revenues. How does that affect, our bottom line and our budget for the year?
Yeah, so this shouldn't impact our actual bottom line for the budget. The funds will come out of that separate fund that the board was authorized to spend out of. I think that if we look at the billed revenues, and Chad can add anything here, but I think that we were fairly conservative in the amount that we thought that we might bring in, and I think based on current call volume, that fund should be pretty healthy by the end of 2020 fiscal year.
So because of some of the delays getting billing started, just normal startup type stuff, we know that we billed through the end of January, through February 1st, we had billed $360,000 worth of claims. It doesn't mean we collect $360,000. It's healthcare. It doesn't quite work that way. But that was certainly more than I had anticipated. In looking at the payer mix, I personally approve every call to send to our billing company. I have like a 25-point quality assurance checklist I go through, and one of the things I look at as part of that is the payer, whether they're insured or not, and whether they're insured correctly or underinsured or whatnot. You can tell just by the name of it. We're getting some really good insurances, so they're paying a lot better than I would have expected. So in the next couple months, we should have some really solid numbers about what we're actually making, but it's certainly better than I had anticipated.
So what is the total cost of this by the time it gets set up and ready to be on the street?
So the total there's a couple different answers for it. So, and I'm not trying to be coy about it. So I just want to give you the full picture.
Yep.
So there's the vehicle, and then there's the equipment to go inside of it, right? So I would say that right now, the vehicle, including the equipment, all said and told, is about $300,000 if we were to go buy a new ambulance today with a new cardiac monitor, and a new cot, and a new power load system. So that's how much the ambulance and all of the equipment that goes inside of it. The cardiac monitor alone is $35,000.
So that's how much it would cost to do a new one, you see?
And all the equipment to go inside of it. The vehicle alone, it was, yeah, I want to say,
And the reason I'm asking is on the budget for $413,000 for the one we have now.
so what we did is, it was always part of the plan. Great question, and I'm glad you asked that. So something didn't get left
Some
off.
clarification.
Yeah. So what we did is we purchased an ambulance and the equipment to go inside of it, and we purchased some of the equipment we need to go inside of a second ambulance. Things like the cardiac monitor for $35,000. We purchased the radio system, which I want to say was $6,000. A scoop stretcher was $1,000. Suction unit. So we got as much as we could for that second ambulance, because that's always been the plan to get the backup ambulance as part of that whole process. So now we're just coming back and saying the last remaining pieces are the ambulance, the cot, the power load system, and the special chair called a stair chair we put patients in.
So this used ambulance is just bare bones, how much money is that?
So the ambulance that we're recommending, with the cot, the power load system, the stair chair, and the ambulance, the four components we need is $90,789.
So we're asking for 70 from the funds to go in.
Correct. So we're asking for, at the end of the memo it says, asking for authorization from withdrawal of $70,000 from the EMS revolving fund, and the remainder will be paid out of the fire department budget. We were able to get some savings by getting the equipment, like the cardiac monitors. They gave us a discount for getting two at once as opposed to one. With the plan always to have two ambulances, it just really made sense to do that.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. Do you have any questions, Roger?
Not that I can think of at the moment, but there's a lot of stuff wheeling around in here.
Sure.
Because, you know, what the town has just spent already. I know, I didn't realize that all the stuff was bought for the second ambulance. Already it wasn't, and I wasn't in on the initial
Right.
discussions that the other selectmen and, you know, you guys have made on this stuff, so it's kind of green to me on some of this stuff and which direction we're going in. I'd almost like to have a little more research myself on past selectmen's meeting, what was voted on, what wasn't.
Okay. Well, because time is of the essence, I mean, you had promised this gentleman, what would you say his name was?
His name's Al Hooper.
Al.
And he agreed to hold the ambulance for us
Okay.
until tonight, basically.
Okay. So it kind of, time is of the essence, so either we make the decision or we allow Roger to have time to come up to speed with the background. So.
I mean, if I could just add, there's quite a bit of information. I'll make sure to get you as much as I can, and I'll try to educate you on everything that's been done and the different actions that have taken since then and what the board's decisions have made. But I would stress that there is a bit of a lead time, like Chad was saying, and we are in a position where we really need to have that backup ambulance to keep as minimal downtime as possible, because there are lives on the line. You know, if we get if something mechanical or a service requirement needs to happen on that primary, then it really leaves the people of Littleton and the visitors in a tough spot. So,
I mean, one of my concerns is when I see that ambulance out for a building inspection, that I get upset because that thing's gonna be worn out for other things compared to using it for an ambulance.
Yeah.
So
So
it's really a concern to the public and everybody that I've been speaking to end up in this position.
So there's a few things. One is, as far as that goes, we don't have any, I mean, we can take a fire engine or an ambulance or a ladder truck or a tanker. We don't have any type of utility vehicle, pickup truck, car, anything like that. So there's that aspect of things. That's the only vehicle the duty crew, you know, the fire apparatus and the ambulance are what the duty crew has to choose from as far as going out somewhere. The second aspect of it, though, and in my opinion more important, is a lot of time, for a smaller number of medical calls, time really is of the essence. And so we could bring a pickup truck out to do an inspection, go back to the station, get it, and come back out. Or we could leave somebody behind at the station and try to bring it to the scene. But a lot of times having that equipment right with you is the best option. And so I'm not saying that if we, having another vehicle, we wouldn't use that and you wouldn't see a reduction in it. Yeah, I really think you would, depending on where or whatnot. Where the inspection was taking place, how far away from the station, the staffing on that given day. There'd be a lot of factors that go into it. But it wouldn't be that if we had a pickup truck, we'd only use that, for example, to do an inspection. And we do also have the revenue stream. One of the MRI recommendations is a revenue stream to use to support the system, and that's what we're getting into now as far as the revolving fund. That fund's in there and dedicated to help pay for these types of expenses.
What is the, and it sounds like it's in great condition, Captain, but what is the, is it like sold as is? Or is there any type of warranty?
Yeah, so there's a very limited warranty that basically, it's like 30 days or something like that, that covers some basic stuff. And
Probably
basically
about like any 5-year-old vehicle that you buy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's not, yeah, so there's a limited warranty, but not a law offer. Yeah, I mean, like today on the medical call we went on, we had to take the ladder truck. That's a $1.2 million truck. I took it to essentially help an elderly person off the floor. She had fallen. So it works, it cuts both ways a little bit. You know, if we had that ambulance, we would have brought that used ambulance to that call. And if something would have happened, that would have happened to that vehicle.
So do we feel comfortable moving forward to making a motion, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was originally the one that voted against it, and I've been pleasantly pleased with how everything has gone and how the department has conducted themselves. I was also found it to be a very resounding vote, the support from the taxpayers in support of, of an internal EMS or, fire-based EMS. To that end, I'm going to make the motion to authorize the expenditure of $70,000 from the EMS Ambulance Service Fund for the purchase of a backup ambulance and equipment.
Okay. Second?
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, first and a second, all in favor say yes, aye?
Aye.
Okay. To go?
And certainly, as questions come up too, I'd love to have you over to the station and kind of show you some
Okay.
of our stuff, and,
Yep.
and the whole board actually, and to answer those questions as they come up, ongoing. Like, hey, I saw this, I don't understand, or it bothered me, and maybe the answer is yeah, I'm sorry, and or it could be here's why, and maybe it gets a better understanding.
I mean, just for the price of what that ambulance costs to be out doing things, to have a Suburban would be a lot better,
For a lot of different reasons as well, not just that, but yes, yeah, we definitely. I think that you'll find, coming onto the board, you're probably already aware that as far as some equipment and vehicles town-wide, there's been some struggles more recently, police department, public works. And so I think the board and the town manager's really done a great job trying to get us back on track. And that's certainly part of getting us back on track, I believe, too.
One of the things that we're actually doing right now is one of the police department vehicles that is going to be coming off, the one that is in the best shape. We're going to look at bringing that as an admin vehicle for the fire department. there's other changes, that I would like to propose in the future, but it requires a discussion with the union. And so I won't really give you details here, but it will be something for future conversation that address your concerns exactly.
Okay, good, thank you.
And thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. I know the firefighters will do as well. A lot of times we have to make decisions in seconds, and having the equipment right there looking at it certainly makes the decisions easier to make.
And I think that everybody's really appreciative of the fire department and the quick transition that you guys have had, and I think the voters showed the support of the fire department in this move, so, yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
at this time's a crisis, people don't want to be without an ambulance.
That's right.
That's what you gotta look at right now.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So I guess moving right along here, Green Up Day, April 18th, 2020. Anything you want to?
Yeah, just, usually we have coordination with the transfer station manager, Brian Patno, and Parks and Rec, Chris Wilkins, and then we kind of create a community event out of it. I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to do that this year.
Right.
I think Green Up Day is still gonna be underway. It's just, this year we're gonna have some extra training for the participants on, maybe don't touch certain things, and maybe some things are best left to us to clean up. So.
Will there be further information forthcoming then on that?
Yeah, the
Okay.
planning's underway. They'll be releasing information. We'll probably have that at a next public meeting.
Okay, very good. It is a lot of fun, and just to be able to share that for the last probably 2 years, I've been able to participate. And it's a fun way to get involved with the community, but also to clean it up. And
It shows, when it's done.
yeah.
Do they give rubber gloves to the participants?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
even
not this
safe-
year.
Maybe not this year, yeah.
I was gonna say, is there a supply of them out there somewhere?
Maybe not.
I've got a couple of mechanics gloves, boxes of those
Yeah.
from.
Usually I've got one of those things that you can pick stuff up off the ground and put it in the bag. That works out really
They
well.
give us safety vests, and usually somebody from the police department will come by and kind of guide us too if we find needles or things like that, the safety precautions on that, so.
Good.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so,
Next up are other updates, but I was wondering if, let's see, we could jump to old business, just because I see Andy Nadal's been waiting so
I know.
patiently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Under old business, Crane Street was a topic that was brought up a couple meetings, and Horizons engineer Andy Nadal and Public Works Director Doug Danko and Mr. Greenlaw have been working together to do additional research. So Andy's done additional surveying and historical research, and it's now complete. The research has determined that Mr. Greenlaw's understanding of his parcel boundary was misunderstood. It appears that the confusion originated from Caswell Heights subdivision map and poor quality of subdivision mapping, and a project laid out tie lines for the dimensions and was inaccurately viewed as a parcel line. So multiple historic documents, including original road layout, deeded dimensions, and original deeds, and previous survey and mapping were utilized. Horizons has completed the information and determined the prop road and parcel dimensions. So with that, Andy, you want to skip ahead here to get to.
and has Mr. Greenlaw been contacted on this with the,
I believe Andy had a conversation with him today.
I did,
okay,
Yep.
and don't feel bad. I knew I wouldn't be up too early on this meeting anyway, so So I'll just give you a little bit of a history on this. So Doug had contacted me last fall and asked me to take a look at this property on Crane Street. We just had a really busy winter, but we did get out there as soon as the snow started to go. And essentially what this comes down to is just completing a boundary survey. There's a lot of stuff going on here that I think it makes it more complicated than it needs to be. But at the end of the day, I'm a professional land surveyor, and this is a survey. And so I didn't look at any of the issues regarding utilities or, what's happened or what's transpired between the town and Mr. Greenlaw. I'm just really here to figure out what his boundary lines are. So Mr. Greenlaw owns this parcel. Historically, it was the MacGyver parcel. And he just purchased his parcel, and I guess he's planning on fixing the house and maybe flipping it or something like that. So, and I guess from what I understand from Doug is that he has an issue with potentially the town utilities. He claims that they're on his land, and I believe he actually even installed some curbing himself, which he believes is on his land. So the problem, I don't know where to start. I don't want to overcomplicate this, okay? So this parcel, this house was built before any other houses out there. This parcel of land was subdivided before any other lots out in that area were subdivided. So historically, this house was out on a dirt road. It was called the Old Slaughterhouse Road in the 1800s. The earliest deed I've looked at goes back to, I think, 1873. When the parcel was created, it was described as a 7-rod square, essentially a square. So 7 rods being 16.5 feet. So the parcel was 150 plus or minus square. And then that deed description carried forward. 115.5 feet is the dimension. That deed description carried forward through all the subsequent conveyances right up until Mr. Greenlaw purchased it, and then the deed description was changed. So that's just kind of the history of how this parcel was created. Back in the late 60s and early 1970s, the Caswell Heights subdivision was developed and approved by the planning board at that time. This parcel was there at that time. So I've got more copies of this plan. If I can distribute copies to the board.
Probably good for them to have.
Yeah, let me just drop a couple.
I'm sure they'll probably want to be able to speak to Mr. Greenlaw if he has questions for us.
Thank you, Andy.
So, in the late 1960s and early 1970s, there was a full build-out plan for Caswell Heights developed. This plan is actually dated to 1961, even though that subdivision really didn't start to get built in phases until the 1970s. Now you can see that it shows Mr. Greenlaw's parcel at the time as an existing parcel. Okay. Subsequently, it was the subdivision was phased. They broke it down into smaller areas. This is the area along Crane Street. Once again, there's the MacGyver Greenlaw parcel. There's another version of this plan. It's essentially the same plan. I don't know why there were 2 versions. One was approved by the planning board. These are all public record documents at the registry. And then later on in the 1980s, Moose Brook was another survey firm in town at the time, further subdivided this parcel. And you can see once again, Mr. Greenlaw's parcel is a record existing lot at the time. So I just provided a little bit of, I blew these plans up so you can understand a little bit what I'm talking about. So what happened was, Crane Street was created as a town road in the 1800s as a 2-rod road, 33 feet wide. That layout is in the town records. When this Caswell Heights subdivision was completed, they wanted to have a 50-foot wide road, which is the town standard. So the town added, and they essentially took 17 feet from the landowner to make the road 50 feet wide. They did not take the 17 feet from Mr. Greenlaw's parcel because it wasn't part of the subdivision. It was a private, independently owned parcel. He wasn't the developer. So that's very important. So the town took the additional 17 feet. Now they have a 50-foot wide street. Now if you've ever been out there, you can look on the tax maps. His house is very close to the street. Okay. Here's a blow up of that subdivision. So I I zoomed in so you can get a good look at what's going on here. So when it was surveyed in the 1970s, there's a few problems. First of all, the survey was, I don't like to talk about another survey, but I think he's probably deceased, but the math is no good. The survey, it doesn't close. It doesn't form a closed boundary. So if I try to recreate this parcel, it has errors in it. Okay, so it makes it difficult for me to retrace a parcel when the math is no good. You'll see that this line, you can see a dimension of 125.60 feet. This is really what Mr. Greenlaw thinks is his boundary. So we have two different versions of this Caswell Heights plan. One of them shows just a dimension as like it's shown on here from this corner to this corner. And the other plan shows a line with that dimension. Now, I don't believe, and there's actually two plans that show it without a line. There's only one that shows it with a line. It's not a boundary line. It's what we call a tie line. It's just showing the distance between these 2 points. It's very, very important to understand that the approval of the Caswell Heights subdivision can in no way constitute an adjustment of the boundaries that already existed, or there's no way that it can change the boundary line in front of that existing parcel where the right-of-way was located. This was independent of the subdivision. So Mr. Greenlaw is convinced that the only document that pertains to where his boundary should be is this plan that shows his tie corners. He came into my office this morning and I tried to explain to him everything I've just explained to you, and he just didn't want to hear it. He got a little belligerent at me, and I did give him a copy of the plan, so take it home and study it. And I said, I'd be happy to have another surveyor look at that. And he says, I don't need another surveyor. This is my surveyor. Well, the surveyor is no longer with us. So it really comes down to in analyzing and trying to have him understand that his deed is not the operating deed in the chain of title. It's the original deed. Okay. So if you look on the sheet I laid on the table, you'll see the boundaries that I determine are the solid black line. You'll see a dashed line that forms a box. That's the deed line. That's my best interpretation of where that deed line sits. And then you'll see a line with 2 dashes. That's my determination of where the street was located, the 33-foot wide street. And then the red line is the line that I believe is incorrectly depicted on the 1971 plan. So all that said, Mr. Greenlaw owns a 7 square rod parcel bounded on Crane Street. I've determined where Crane Street likely was located at the time that the parcel was created, and he can't own any more than his deed says, and he can't own the town right of way. And I've done my best job to determine where the town right of way is. It's not where he thinks it should be.
So what does the original deed say as far as footage, where there's 2 different, you got 2 different measurements here?
The original deed, I can read it to you. I didn't bring my glasses. Beginning at Stake and Stones, that doesn't exist anymore. Standing on the east side of the road, first above described. First above described, 14 feet southerly from the southwest corner of the house now standing on the premises. So the point of beginning for the deed actually refers to the corner of the house. And my retracement survey, I have it about 15 feet, and the deed says it's supposed to be 14 feet. That's pretty good for a 130-year-old deed. And then it's just simply described, thence northerly on the line of said road, 7 rods to a stake, thence turning and running at a right angle with said road, 7 rods to a stake and stone, thence running parallel with the first described line, 7 rods to a stake and stone, thence running 7 rods to the bound first begun. That's what Mr. Greenlaw owns. his parcel's bounded by Crane Street. I believe I have done, with the evidence that I have, I've determined the most likely location of where Crane Street was as described in this deed. So everything that happened after that, the surveyor's job to always determine what did the first surveyor do, and then we have to put it together. Subsequent surveys, I wouldn't say they're meaningless, but they don't have the weight that an original survey or an original deed has. Mr. Greenlaw's deed description that he has now is referring to the 1971 plan, which I believe is incorrect. However, if you look at his deed, and I don't know why they changed the description. It drives me crazy when attorneys do that. Instead of using the description that's been there since 1870, they all of a sudden write a new description.
When was the description changed?
It was changed
71?
on his current deed. So his deed.
2019 it was changed?
No, it would have been prior to that.
Because he bought it from McIver.
He's got, so his deed is dated May 15, 2019. He bought it from the McIver Revocable Trust.
Right.
And it's referring to that 1971 plan. However, if it says meaning and intending to describe and convey all in the same premises. So that's the important language for me. Meaning all in the same premises as conveyed by Quick Clean to McIver. So if you look at that deed, it's using the old description. I tried to explain that to Mr. Greenlaw. I didn't want to hear it, but you can't just change your boundaries by writing the description. Your boundaries are your boundaries based on what was originally created in the original deed.
So essentially, the discrepancy is when this deed was written up last year, they used the wrong. They rather than use the former language, they used a plan they found from 1971.
They did, and that plan is incorrect.
And with your survey, did you still find out that Crane Street was 33 feet wide right there in front of his place?
It is. So if you look at my survey, now how I determined Crane Street, there was a survey across the road Bill Smith did. I got a copy of it here somewhere. So Bill Smith was a very reputable surveyor down in the Lyman area. And he did a survey of the road of the lot across the road. And he's showing, and his survey was dated prior to, I believe he's showing the location of the road, the original 33-foot wide road. Like you see, he's showing a piece of stone wall. That's very important to me as a surveyor because stone walls were generally built on the sideline of the roads. If I find an old stone wall, I usually will hold it as the right-of-way limits. It's been buried now, and I think it may be gone because they've done additional work out there. But I was able to tie into this survey using some of these monuments out back. So essentially, my right-of-way line is what you're seeing on this survey based on this old stone wall location, and then I just simply offset it 33 feet for the other side of the road. And if you look at that line, lands pretty much on the edge of pavement. It more or less fits the 7 square rods. It fits the 14 feet called the corner of the house. And most importantly, you'll see where they did take the additional 17 feet. I'm coming up with 16.32 and 16.44. So I have 4 pieces of evidence that kind of corroborate that I have that right-of-way, that historic right-of-way in the correct place. This distance was supposed to be 17 feet. So it makes sense that if that was the original location on the road, when they widened it 17 feet, it would put it back here. So it all the evidence, it's the preponderance of the evidence, it all kind of fits together. None of it's rock solid. It is a little bit squishy. I mean, that's just the nature of surveying. There's not a lot of the only really old piece of evidence out there is a stone wall out back behind his house. And I tried to explain to him this morning. I said, look, he's not arguing that stone wall is incorrect or those monuments out back, but he only had seven rods. If I hold that red line and come off from the back line, which he believes is correct, it'll put his line out in the street. So I just don't, I don't believe that 1971 plan was accurate. I mean, I know it's not accurate, it has errors in it.
So really, a resolution for Mr. Greenlaw would be to simply have the deed rewritten?
It doesn't need to be rewritten. I mean, his deed is valid.
I assume what he's worried about is when he goes to sell this, if it's gonna go on the sold market or something like that, people are gonna look through the deed and...
He wants the town to pay for where that, what he thinks is,
Yeah, he doesn't have a problem with his chain of title and his deed.
No.
He thinks the town's on his land, and I don't think the town is on his land. And even if they were, which they're not, number one, generally you can't claim an adverse right against a municipality. It's probably a prescriptive right through maintenance and use of the public. So even if, and I'm saying with a big if, that red line in his assertion is correct, you can't claim town property through use and occupation. You can only do that against private property. And the town probably has a prescriptive right, and the utilities are there by prescription and maintenance. So I think he's got a tough road to convince me that he's got utilities on town land. I'm sorry, that the utilities are on his land.
But just to clarify, like Chad's saying, if you know, because his business is fixing up and then selling a property, there won't be, when he goes to sell, there's no issue with his, that you see with his title that's going to impact it. Okay.
No, his title's clean. He owns a 7 square rod bounded by Crane Street.
Yeah. Okay.
We just got to figure out where it is. But I think I figured it out.
Yeah.
You know.
he's done a very good job fixing it up, and then with the grooming in the front, it's no longer pavement, it's grass, and he has done a very good job with it.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing that he needs to come to understand is that he owns what he owns, the town owns what they own, and subsequent incorrect surveys, I don't care who surveys a lot, they do it incorrectly, it does not change the historic title and the historic location of that parcel. I just think those early 1970s was a bad time for surveying. Licensing just came about, and I think it was 71, they started requesting guys get licensed, so a lot of guys came up that never, maybe should have been surveying land. There was a lot of math errors in those days. They were using planimeters and they were scaling, and they just, so it doesn't surprise me that I found errors in that plan.
So you left it with him, that you sent him home with one so he could study, and then left it open for him to come back and talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really leave anything with him. I gave him the plans and I said, here's my survey. He was a little belligerent, and I welcome him to take it to another. I asked him, I said, if you want to have another survey, take a look at this, and that's when he got a little upset with me. So, well, I already have a surveyor, and he pointed to the 1971 plan. He said, that's my survey. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'd be happy to sit down with him. I'd be happy to sit down with another surveyor.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Sure.
It's quite a bit of research.
Yeah, it is.
And Doug helped a lot. I'll give Doug credit. You guys have a great public works director. He actually understands surveying, understands deeds and title. He actually did all the research himself and handed it off to me.
Yeah, cool.
And it was helpful. So.
Yeah,
That's
thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, Madam Chairman, do you mind if we return back to other updates? I'll just go through those really quickly.
Sure.
Okay. So, one update is the rail trail. At the time I wrote the report for you, there was no additional news and construction on the trails plan for 2020. Since then, I've been in contact with Chris Gamache, Bureau of Trails. Some of the funding is hung up. There's a public meeting that needs to take place prior to being released by the Northern Borders Regional Commission. We have $110,000 that's going towards this project through their funds.
And the COVID-19, some of the things that have happened with that are making it so that that group can't meet. So there is going to be a delay based on that, but I don't have a time frame yet. The town meeting update, so I was just saying, the town meeting took place about just under 2 weeks ago. Since then, we have had the COVID-19 epidemic preparation planning, and it's consumed much of the entire municipal leadership's time. But with that said, we have already made some good progress. And so I'll do a full update at the next meeting, and I'll go through and just show you where we're at with each of the items that are on the agenda, on the warrant. Transportation Alternative Program, just a quick update on that. So we received a notice to proceed with engineering study. It was issued by the New Hampshire Transportation Board. The project was released on February 1st, 2018 in the amount of $117,474 for the engineering study and preliminary design.
Brian Hatno
An increase in cost.
has left the meeting.
An increase in cost of the engineering study in the amount of $7,754 was approved on March 5th, 2019. If you remember, we requested to increase the size of the project based on recommendations from local DOT staff, including Jim McMahon. And so that'll take additional engineering to accomplish that. 17 Hillview Terrace, which we have the finished survey up here. Just give you a quick update on that. So as you know, the warrant article was approved last year. Terms were negotiated. We had our initial inspection completed. Phase 1 environmental has been completed. Phase 2 environmental now has been completed. There was a requirement by New Hampshire DES to install additional monitoring well. That's been completed. And we were able to skip the expedited review process that NHDS usually requires. And they've now done a review of the results and a recommendation. And closing is scheduled, and I actually received notification that we're going to do, because of this event, we have to do the closing by mail. And I'm going to have the closing documents to sign tomorrow, so we're moving forward.
Any updates as far as someone tearing the building down? Or?
So we'll start working. We've kind of been working on that, us and the owner, finding somebody. We have a quote to take it down. The difficult thing is that the location compared to the property behind it is so close, it requires a crane and some specialized crew. I think our estimate was around the $50,000 range. What we're doing right now is trying to find an entity or an individual that might be interested in repurposing it, maybe for a honey barn.
I'm good.
So we're going to be, while we're working on trying to find a home for it, we're also going to be working on the preliminary design, where we have to do the lighting, the landscaping, the drainage, and that sort of thing. So, one of the things we looked at was that the parcel had arsenic on it. And so we found out that it's mostly just natural, but not all. But we do have some limitations. Best use, DES said, was actually to have it an impervious surface, which is a parking lot, so good use for it. And we looked at the depths that we're allowed to go, because that could restrict the type of drainage that we could put on the lot. So, that is, I believe that's all I have. If you have any questions on any other activities, I could answer them at this time.
Can't really ask for public input because is anybody on?
Is anybody left on the WebEx?
Should give them an opportunity.
And Jack, can you tell how many viewers are on?
Shut it down.
Oh, you did?
We had no internet for it.
Okay.
It looks like there's one call-in user, which I believe is Brian, and then you have the police chief, fire chief, and public works director.
Okay, so,
Okay.
Yep. And I would say thank you for bearing with us with, trying to figure out a way to, meet the law requirements, but also, try to stay within the recommendations for separation. It'll be a work in progress, and
Sure will.
even at the town office, we're having a department head meeting tomorrow, but we're doing it all remote, so we're not breathing the same air. So,
So it looks like the only thing we have left is under new business, the Glenwood Cemetery policy during the coronavirus pandemic.
yes. Would you like me to read the policy that they submitted?
Sure.
Okay. I have a letter that they sent to Ross Funeral Home. So this letter is addressed to Ross Funeral Home, attention Tammy Ross, read Glenwood Cemetery policy during coronavirus update. In an effort to deal in a responsible manner with the scale of implications facing us with the coronavirus, and after having communicated with 2 local funeral home directors, Glenwood Cemetery Corporation is limiting the group size for any graveside service or other cemetery function to a maximum of 10 people. This includes any combination of friends, family, ministry, and others. The policy covers services at any Littleton cemetery and is subject to change as the situation develops. Failure to abide by this policy may result in suspension of burials in the cemeteries until further notice. Thank you for cooperation as we make this effort to slow the spread of this serious virus. Sincerely, Tom Mall, President of Glenwood Cemetery Corporation.
So at this point, they will just continually update as they, okay.
That's right.
Katie wanted the board to approve the new policy.
I don't know.
But he did in the email.
My question would be too, I'm thinking of somebody that would have a big family, and let's say there's 20. We're talking maybe a mom, a dad, grandparents, or whatever. Would there be a possibility of being able to do 2 services to accommodate? I would hate to be so firm, and then, especially at a very emotional time. I think if we could maybe go back and ask them, we get why they're doing it. We totally get
Yes.
that. But if there's some way we could split it up even in the case of big families.
And has the outdoor gathering been reduced to 10, or is it still at 50? You know?
So I saw something about 10, but I don't know if it was a recommendation or an order. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. There's been so many changes with the.
We could look into it further and get back to you. They have this policy in place right now. I mean, I don't know if they have they're asking because do they have
They're
policy
asking.
making authority? The cemetery.
That wasn't clear in his question when he emailed me.
See, I would think there would be a difference too between the funeral home, if there's a wake or calling hours, to be able to regulate that, but outdoors, if they would be able to accommodate that.
At the cemetery, and stuff, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
So I believe that the funeral home is a private entity, and unless there's some emergency action or executive order that limits the size of a gathering, that it would be up to the funeral home to determine what size they feel would be appropriate.
But the Glenwood Cemetery is a town.
Yep.
Town property,
So, 10 people and then 70 feet apart, 10 more. Try to work it that way, where the family could all be there, just not close, if you kept them in groups,
Right.
somehow. Everybody wants to mingle and stuff like that, that's the problem.
Yeah. But Tom's looking for us to approve this policy.
I'll make a motion to approve the policy as presented.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so good.
Yeah, and I guess just one more thing to add. We do have a section on the website, and it says COVID-19 Town of Littleton response. If you go in there, there's quite a few resources to look up. Everything from the governor's emergency orders 1 through 8, business resources to help support the business community. There's information. We're working with NCIC to try to help the local businesses that need help. NCIC, for example, right now is offering their assistance to listen to each case and they have a team that will try to work to help find ways to keep a business afloat. So there's other things up on there, and I just would encourage people to check it out, and we'll keep changing it. One other thing I would just add is we have created Town of Littleton Facebook page, and so we're putting information out on that as well. There will be information that's critical, like public
Is it
press releases, but also
is it on Facebook? Is it just Town of Littleton, New Hampshire?
I think it's Littleton space NH. So because I think Littleton.
There's probably a lot of Town of Littletons.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll find it and share because I know there's a lot of good information that's out there, and a lot of people in the community, I think, are very interested whether the transfer station's really seen a growth, as well as the unofficial, the old highway department one really had a good following. And I'll be sure to try to promote that to as many community members so that they can stay in touch.
Our Facebook page has like 1,300, 1,400 people following it. It's a lot of, it might be more now. There's a lot of people. So if we get the link, we can share on our Facebook page.
Yep.
Good. Great.
And the police department says right up
Yeah,
there,
the police department has a good following.
Good. Yeah, Chad convinced me it was the way to go.
Especially right now, I think with all the emergency announcements and everything, it's a good thing. And it's a great PR tool to let people know what, how much is going on in their town office and each department. There's just so much stuff that you don't realize. I think it's just the general community member, and when media only shows up to some meetings and stuff, you just don't get a full grasp of how much is going on.
That's true.
Good.
That's good.
Thank you.
So anything else?
The only thing I was on the website, do we have any status updates on that?
Yep, so we narrowed it down to 3, and I wanted it to be a collaborative process, so we have multiple people involved in the town as part of it. I know which one I would like to choose. It's really one that's designed specifically for municipalities. They do almost all New Hampshire ones. But this whole thing has kind of slowed us down because we were meeting in a little committee and we had a ranking system, and I just need to probably figure out a way for us to do it just remotely and pull it back in as a topic. But really, the COVID-19 thing is just just the planning efforts that have gone in place just to continue functioning. But we are completely functioning. I guess I would say the bright side of this is that we've analyzed all of our operations and figured out, who can do what and how, and what was missing, and we went ahead and put that in place. For example, we have a new phone system that we put in place just last year, and there were capabilities on it that we hadn't turned on. They cost a little bit extra, but now we really see it's worth it. Having an app on your phone, so if you call somebody's desk, it rings on the cell phone. Or a few individuals, we have been working on getting laptops instead of just having regular PCs, and then getting the term server system set up, which we already have in place. SNS really got us ahead of the game years ago by getting us ready with the term server system. So we've been able to also look at just the office schedule and who will be in the office on which days of the week to limit everybody's cross contamination. So, and it's just, I think it's kind of forced us to be in a better position, a more resilient position for the future.
So do we have to go into non-public? No? Alrighty, well, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening, thanks again for patience, flexibility.
Do you want a motion to adjourn? Or
Yeah, sure.
Move to adjourn?
Okay,
Second?
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.